This month on my Patreon courses, I will be taking a different approach. As all of my courses are meant to be educational and for anybody to be able to learn a variety of different skill sets on how they can communicate, as well as protect themselves from all sorts of things that are out there that maybe our physical eyes may not always be able to see, this will be no exception. However, you may already notice the tone is going to be different. The tone is different because what I'm going to talk about is going to be scary. I am going to tell you some of the scariest things that have ever happened to me. I'm going to explain to you in more detail why it is I have made the decisions that I have made in regards to my boundaries, even with the physical. I am doing this because I take issue with anyone saying that they are jealous of me and jealous of my experience and jealous of my gifts. Remember, I do not believe these are gifts. I believe these are abilities that can be built and grown over time, and that is exactly what I've been doing. I tell you these stories not to scare you. I tell you these stories because I want you to learn from my experience and not have to have the same experience for yourself. I did not know anyone who could do the things that I could do. I did not know the psychic language when I was first coming into it. I learned very much in a very short amount of time. And I want to share that with people so that you feel like you have communities, so that you feel like you have something to learn and grow from, rather than going into it blindly as I did. For about 5 years, I co-owned a business in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was an immersive, theatrically and psychologically based escape room, and it was a lot of fun. We had a large building. We had, I think our largest amount of cast was 13 at any given point. It was a great position for many people, and it was a great way for performers to get paid in the area. We didn't know anything about thought form spirits then. We didn't know how people could bring things and then shed them. Now, what we were doing was we would create this concept that would build anticipation within a 60-minute time frame. And we used music and actors and all sorts of things to build up that anticipation. We used binaural brainwaves. What we were doing was honestly incredible. It was a theatrical and creative playground for us in allowing people to feel. It also allowed them to shed some things. And we found that there was this energy that started to collect around one of the exit doors of one of our more psychologically thrilling games that we offered. And we didn't think too much about it until other folks started to realize things. Now, at the time, I was very psychically shut down. I had just come from Washington, D.C., and I had to work a lot on survival and living stuff and just trying to get by. Those were some very hard years. And so I wasn't so psychically connected. I wasn't so connected to myself. It started with feeling like different cast members were being watched, myself included. And we didn't always know how to verbalize that to each other because we just thought, maybe we're losing our minds a little bit. And then I remember one time I was sitting at the desk. It was the desk when people first walked in. And I looked towards the end of the hallway and I just felt like there was a man staring at me and I couldn't understand. And I was just like really not okay because I just didn't want him to come closer to me because I didn't know why he was there. Nothing like murderous had happened in the building or anything like that. It made no sense why there would be a haunting there. But at the time, I didn't know much about any of this stuff. So that happened. My co-owner at the time, he was sitting out with the kid because we did have an age requirement. Somebody brought their child in with them, and so they could not do the game. We had like zombies and undead stuff and sigils and all kinds of things. We weren't going to let somebody under 12 into the room. Sometimes we had adults cry because they were afraid. So, what we were doing was effective, and so that's why we had an age requirement. He's sitting out with this kid. Kids being watched by an adult while the rest of their group is going through, and decides to give the kids some paper and a marker so that they can do something. And they started to draw pictures of what they were seeing. And it starts off as a humanoid form. And this area, one wall was black and one wall was red. And they were drawing the black and red wall. And they were drawing a figure in front of the black and red wall, a figure in all black, who had a face, and then whose face started to form into something else with a bunch of bloody holes in it. That was creepy. So that was one of the ways that we started to say, maybe it's not in our heads. Then cast members started to say that they felt like they were being rushed out the doors. Like whenever they turned off the lights, they had to run towards the door to get out because something was chasing them out. And when they were closing up together, it didn't always feel that way, but when they were closing up alone, it always felt that way. And I had felt the same way. One night I was backstage. There was only one show going at the time and I was the only one backstage. I was waiting to go out. The full group had not yet arrived into the room itself, and I started to feel terror. Absolute terror. I had no idea why, but it was like it was closing in on me, and I felt this strange breeze getting closer, this strange kind of cloud sort of thing, and I didn't fully understand what was going on. And I started to see curtains nearby starting to move, and that's when I was just sitting there in this kind of ball, almost like a fetal position, and I started calling out to my grandma. I didn't know what else to do, and I was like, please, 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 I don't want to be alone right now. Why, you might be thinking, why did I call out to my grandma? I don't know. But I was just like, I need somebody, help, please. And she showed up. I didn't see her with my eyes. I just kind of felt like her presence was nearby. It was enough for me to get out of my paralysis state and kind of crawl out to the room where my co-host was coming in just a few moments, to which I told him that I would be, rather than running in and out backstage, I would be primarily in the room for the entire duration of the hour because something was back there and I didn't know what it was. We eventually called a shaman to come in and cleanse out the area and bless the space, and we learned a lot. Most importantly was that a thought form spirit had been created that was built out of people's fears and terrors and was surviving off of creating the same emotion from other people. So it was broken up. The shaman who came in, he was using a bundle of dried herbs for what he was doing, and it actually caught fire on him. And he stayed calm, but he was angry because he's like, I just bought this bundle. And he went into the bathroom, he poured some water, he blessed the water, and he's like, I'm going after this thing. It was very validating what he was saying, because there were things that other people had felt that we had felt, and we just kind of felt like we were crazy. So yeah, we called for help. We paid money for this shaman to come out, of course. And we made a friend in the process, and he was one of the only people that I knew who also understood what it was like to see when I first moved to Wilmington and started to have experiences myself. Speaking of paralysis, let's go into my sleep paralysis. Stories I will be covering in this particular course: figures in the hallway, a clown from my nightmares, a man in my closet, a gargoyle that was connected to an ex of mine, a screaming woman that was connected to another ex of mine, a violent energy that was seen in a previous workplace of mine, my experiences with sleep paralysis, figures that were seen not only by myself, but by my pets all at the same time, being followed home multiple times. George. Did anybody forget about George? It was entertaining, wasn't it? I wanted it to be entertaining so that you could learn. It was not entertaining at the time. And the things I have not put on my TikTok: I watched an ex-friend of mine get possessed for 6 hours. I then went to her house to try and help. Some things it's up to the individual to fix for themselves. I will not be posting most of these publicly. I may post some of them on my YouTube. Otherwise, they will be on the courses. The reason why I do this is some people are not going to believe this. That is fine. I am not doing this as a, you have to believe me. I have not done anything on my channel as some kind of, you have to believe me, I'm trying to prove myself. No. Everything on my channel It's for those who ask questions, those who are curious, those who want to feel seen, those who may have never had an experience in their life, but may find entertainment in this, so that perhaps if they do have an experience, they might look back at that video that they watched from me and not be so afraid. That is why I'm doing this. If you want to watch this, you don't have to sign up for a long-term subscription, though it is going to be in full on my Patreon as well as with all my other courses.